And now, the hottest and most sensual production in all of horse racing, the Blown Lead Show.
Between you and Rich Nilsson, the digs that are made on LoneSpeed, it's been called everything in the book. You nailed the delivery. You got the name of the show wrong. Do you want to try it one more time?
Is there anywhere that I can see that somewhere? Oh, it's on your T-shirt right there.
Perhaps on my shirt. I don't know. LoneSpeed merchandise coming soon to a
coming soon.
to a
Okay, let me try
a
this one more
Walmart.
time.
And now, from secret locations all over the United States, we have the hottest and most sensual production in all of horse racing, the Lone Speed Show. And here's your
this
host.
episode, you nailed it.
Brent Traff.
You nailed it. You continue to nail it. This episode brought to you by betptc.com, the best ADW in all of horse racing and all of the world, the best place to wager on Saturday's Preakness. I know you're going to be wagering on the Preakness from BetPTC. Heavily. Also sign up for their Cash is King contest. Go online, read about the rules. In fact, you can go to lonespeed.com, click on the link at the top of the screen. That'll get you to BetPTC. There you can also register for the Cash is King contest, Brent. By the way, FYI, if I didn't mention it, the week one winner of the Cash is King contest is this guy.
Two thumbs.
That's right. What has two thumbs? And yeah, exactly. That whole thing. I'm glad you're back from Vegas. You had a substitute for episode 2 of the LoneSpeed show, the lovely Susie Dew, who only gave out Medina Spirit as her Derby selection and was incredibly thrilled to cash that ticket.
If you just listen to Susie Dew, everything gets better and better.
Yeah, I need to learn that lesson myself. You were busy in Las Vegas for, what was it, 18 consecutive days or something? Or remind me, what was it?
I went with the intention of staying for 5 for a work venture, and then just kept getting comps and was having a good time. It was like Moses walking through the desert for 40 years. It was like us getting through the COVID times. And I finally got the opportunity to go to Vegas, and I needed some action. And so when I got there, I was like, I'm just not leaving. It was 10 days, supposed to be 5. I just kept getting comped and kept staying. Watched the Derby in a less than perfect venue, Harrah's. I think it was me and like 12 other guys. And,
we love Harrah's because we love Harrah's. Not as much as Bally's, but we love Harrah's.
Yes, the sports book's a little smaller. It's a little more quaint, and and people there don't understand the way us horse players swear and scream at the TV screen, actually believing that it will have an effect on the way the horses run. So at the end of the Derby, a lot of people were staring at me and the other guy next to me, who were just jumping up and down, screaming, as our horse did not cross the finish line first.
But your horse, and we'll get to that in a minute, may end up being the winner of the Kentucky Derby. But first, I've got to ask before we move on, it sounds like you're painting a picture of a gambling environment where the Kentucky Derby in Las Vegas was not front and center.
It was not. In fact, I will tell you that I went to what is now the biggest, I believe, the biggest sports book in the country, Circa, and they do not simulcast horse racing unless it's a big event. I mean,
is it called Circa? Is it called Circa, or is it called Cirque?
It's just called Circa. Circa is the. I'm sorry, that's the kids' place. It's Circa, yes. And they have a sports book in the pool, so you can bet on sports in the pool. And anywhere you go in Vegas to a sports book, they're always showing horse racing. I went over just to see this place and was just appalled to get there and found out I couldn't bet my horses there. I could bet any sporting event that was. I could bet on like shuffleboard. Probably, but I couldn't bet on horse racing. It was terrible.
My understanding is that there's an issue between Churchill Downs and the state of Nevada, or maybe it's just Las Vegas, but I've heard from people that it's difficult, if not impossible, to bet on Churchill Downs races in Las Vegas. I believe they offered fixed odds wagering on the Kentucky Derby at some or most casinos, where like the trifecta payout was capped at 150 to 1 or something absurd like that. So yeah, my understanding is it's a bit of a nightmare. But you mentioned the 10 days you were there. We've got the NHC coming up in August. And as we discussed, you're going to be there. All of Team LoneSpeed will be there. I'm thinking about going out early because since I'm double qualified, I get 8 hotel nights. So just go out there, kind of hang out, enjoy my time. I'm a 2 to 3 night Vegas guy. The NHC which is like usually 4 or 5 nights, is difficult enough as it is for me. I can't wrap my head around someone voluntarily spending 10 nights consecutively in Las Vegas.
I think you're more of a sprinter in it when it comes to gambling, and I'm more of a router. I mean, I will run a third or fourth, but I just stay and stay and stay. So I work my way to blackjack, to the craps tables. I didn't get to play poker, a lot of horses, but yeah, I had a good time. I think you are so intense when you go that you just get in there and
True.
you just dip in and then you need to get out.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm gonna have to pace myself. Not really even from a drinking standpoint, and I'm not a big partier, as you know. But just spending all that time in the recycled air of a Vegas hotel, I don't know that my body's prepared for that
It does
just yet.
special things. I actually did
But
it just so I'd calm down. I felt like I needed to get all the energy and like the, "Oh, I gotta gamble" out of me so I can come in at a nice even keel for the NHC.
was it a profitable 10 days for you in Las Vegas?
It was about even. I was
Okay.
profitable in craps, and it almost made up for what I lost in blackjack. The horses were, I mean, don't even get me started. If the Kentucky Derby comes in just slightly differently, I am walk out of Las Vegas well into 5 figures to the good. So
That's incredible. So Mandaloon was your pick, and it seems like almost everybody on the LoneSpeed group text had Mandaloon. I did not. I, in retrospect, should have listened to the observers who said for 2 weeks that Mandaloon looked by far the best of any other horse on the track. Some of that made its way to you and others in our circle of friends, and I cashed nothing. Were it not for Susie's $100 win bet on Medina Spirit, it would have been an absolute disaster of a derby. And it sounds like you were just 1/2 length or something away from a massive score.
it was, yeah. If Mandaloon gets up, I mean, even if gets up and beats Medina Spirit, I mean, I was heavily into a Mandaloon Hot Rod Charlie situation. But if Medina Spirit runs second, I am easily in the 5 figure land. So yes, had win bets, exactas to Medina Spirit, had giant exactas to Hot Rod Charlie, had the trifecta with those 3 horses. Just needed that flip, maybe, or for certain horses not to be, using any kinds of illegal substances. And
Yes.
that's a fine point that we can talk about.
Let's get into that. The Baffert situation. I kind of already gave my thoughts earlier this week on the Baffert situation, and I don't think any of my opinions are all that creative or all that clever. And I think from you and I talking, kind of,
I think I'm on the same page.
Yeah, I think so. This is what's hard for me to believe. And when I posted my video earlier this week, I got calls from known racing personalities saying 2 things. One of them, I completely agree with you. One of them was, you're incredibly naive and you're totally wrong. Baffert is the devil and a known cheater. I won't reveal any names of who said what to whom and when, but my opinion is Bob Baffert would have to be bordering on criminally insane, have some kind of emotional issue, a personality disorder almost,
Mm-hmm.
to recklessly engage in the administration of secret substances, magic drugs, etc., which would almost by definition involve a criminal conspiracy. For him to risk everything he has, including his freedom, to do that, to me, is far-fetched, which leaves the second theory, which is that he uses legal things recklessly, pushing the envelope, and nobody ever enforces anything because he's so entrenched in the sport, and so many people have their paychecks in one way or another dependent on Bob Baffert. He gets away with things that other trainers don't even attempt, because if they got caught, they would be suspended or fined or whatever. So what the truth is, I don't know. People say where there's smoke, there's fire. I guess we'll see how this plays out. But I will say this: that if the tests come back that Medina Spirit had an illegal drug in his system, even if it's a legal drug, legal, not illegal, that was just administered too close to the race, the horse has to be disqualified. And it sounds like Baffert is at risk of never being able to run a horse at Churchill Downs and maybe other places ever again.
Yeah, I think you could theorize that he is like the Don Corleone of California, and he can kind of walk on water there. And when he comes out of that bubble that he's more scrutinized. But still, I mean, you have to know you're going to the Kentucky Derby, the most scrutinized race on the planet. You just have to be an idiot. It just doesn't make sense to me that that is the place you're going to take your shot and try to get away with something, you know.
Especially with Medina Spirit. That, I mean, yes, he's a Baffert, but he was 13-1, so he wasn't one of the longer shots in the field. But if that horse had run ninth or 10th, no one's gonna even really notice.
No.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like I said, I don't really have a hot take on this. We'll see how it plays out. Let's talk about the Preakness, which is tomorrow, and hopefully, Brent, as we're recording this on Friday afternoon, we'll get this posted on Friday, so we can talk about the Preakness as tomorrow. But it's Saturday, as we know. From talking to you offline, it sounds like you've got maybe some stronger opinions here than you did in the Derby, but your Derby opinions were pretty good. So
I was just, we were 2 weeks out when we talked about the Derby. So I'm one of those guys that kind of waits until I have all the information. I don't want to waste a lot of time until 3 or 4 days out until I know who's actually entered. You guys like to talk about it for weeks and weeks in advance. I'm sort of like treat the Kentucky Derby like every other race, which means 3 or 4 days out, I get all the numbers and get who's in and then make my decisions. So the Preakness fits a lot better into the way I tend to handicap. So yeah, I do have some opinions. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pounce on something you just said. That's the right way to do it, because this is a mistake that I make, and I don't think I'm alone. With the Derby, you pretty much know the field, or at least the main contenders, 3-4 weeks in advance. And I find myself getting committed to an idea, and then it's hard for me to jump off that idea for fear of missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And that costs me. And I think what I need to start doing is exactly what you just described, not forming opinions early, because then, I mean, to me, one of the worst, in 2012, I was planning, this is before the Santa Anita Derby, I was going to bet on I'll have another in the Kentucky Derby. I decided that before the Santa Anita Derby. Well, then he goes and wins the Santa Anita Derby, which I didn't really expect it to happen. And he barely won it. I'm like, you know what? The value's gone, because now he's a Santa Anita Derby winner, and he barely beat a couple other horses. I think Creative Cause was one, and there was a Baffert that was another in there. And I jumped off him. And he ended up going off at 15-1 and winning. And if I had just taken a step back, objectively looked at things, I think I probably would have been on I'll have another in 2012, as opposed to Daddy Knows Best, who is still running in the Kentucky Derby from 2012. Why don't you go ahead and go first with your Preakness thoughts?
Yeah, and let me just jump on that last thought. Is we as horse racers, how many times have we got onto a horse in the morning and say, this is my mortal lock, and by the time the race goes off, we got better value, and we just torture ourselves. So I've learned that, like, my opinion's going to be my opinion, and I'm going to make it when I have all the information, because otherwise it's just a list in our heads of all the times we zigged when we should have zagged, and we literally drive ourselves crazy.
And that's important at the NHC, because we've both done this. We have an idea of a horse that we're going to play in the morning. It's 12-1 on the morning line. It opens up at 9-2. You're like, so much for that play. You start focusing on another horse. You talk yourself into it. And then that horse that was 12-1 on the morning line, open 9-2. Now it's back up to 8, 9, 10-1.
Or maybe 12-1.
And then it wins.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Disaster.
So my thoughts on the Preakness. I had basically, I loved Mandaloon in the Derby by the time we got to the race. My 2 other horses that I loved to run just under him, or I thought maybe could beat him. One was Hot Rod Charlie, and the other is the horse who's running, in the Preakness, Midnight Bourbon. I was a giant Midnight Bourbon fan in the Kentucky Derby. Loved the horse. Everything went wrong for him in the Kentucky Derby. Actually got pinched at the start, and this is a horse that likes to go to the front, and just never had a chance, was forced to run off the pace, and still, ran a strong 6th, made a big move towards the end, and closed for a horse that doesn't like to come off the pace. I thought that was very credible. Also, I think he went 4 wide on the first turn and maybe 6 wide on the second turn. I think Elusive Quality ran 70 feet further than Medina Spirit, in the Derby. And I think Midnight Bourbon probably ran 50 or 60 feet further. Overall, I think the second highest overall speed in the Derby. So I was a fan before. I'm going to be a fan again. So that's my first play. The horse.
I'm holding up 3 fingers, and I was waiting for you to ask me why I'm holding up 3 fingers. Midnight Bourbon is 3-1 in early wagering on the Preakness. I just got the text about 20 minutes ago. He is being hammered at the windows. down from, I forget what his morning line was. Was it 10-1 or I don't know what it was, but he's 3-1 right now in early wagering on the Preakness.
I'm sure he will open at that, and I'll be like, yet again, I have managed to find the favorite. But there's something to be said when a horse just makes sense. The horse makes sense. So there's that. I am not a giant fan of Concert Tour. I was kind of hoping that he would take some money. I was hoping again that Medina Spirit would take some money because I don't think either of those horses I think they're a little both overrated. Concert Tour at least has the right style of running, and the Preakness is going to be run typically by someone who's near the front, and Concert Tour has that running line breaking from post 10. Not a big fan of that. Medina Spirit, I feel like there's a lot of horses that are going to make a run for the front just because that's the only chance that they have of being of really giving themselves a chance to win. So I think he's going to have a lot of company, which he didn't in the Derby. The horse that I sort of think might be my sleeper play is the Chad Brown horse, Crowded Trade. I think he's tactically capable of being close. I think he's very lightly raced, but coming in, he's kind of hitting his stride at the right time. So he is going to be, I think I'm going to be a Midnight Bourbon Crowded Trade kind of guy when it comes down to wagering. How about you?
So your win bet is Midnight Bourbon.
My win bet is Midnight Bourbon, but I will be heavily on an exacta that is a 5-4, a Midnight Bourbon Crowded Trade, and I'll probably, me, I will reverse it pretty hard as well. So yeah.
Okay, so you and I are not going to see eye to eye on this race. Although I will say, I do plan on using the two Chads in addition to Crowded Trade. He also has Risk Taking, also owned by Clarovich. He's got two of them in there. So Midnight Bourbon. My opinion, something I've observed over the years, is that the sneaky hot horse coming out of the Kentucky Derby almost never runs well in the Preakness. An exception to that might be War of Will, who stumbled pretty badly because of Maximum Security's antics in 2020. Was that 2019? Whatever year that was, 2019. And he came back to win the Preakness. But I can go through a list, and I wish I'd been prepared for this, but there are many horses that were the sneaky horse, the sneaky trip horse, coming out of the Derby, goes to the Preakness and doesn't run that great. Another exception to what I'm saying would be looking at Lucky, who also won the Preakness. So maybe I'm making your case and defeating my own case in making these points. But I don't like Midnight Bourbon. And the reason is I think he's going to be sent because I don't think Steve Asmussen was happy with how Midnight Bourbon was ridden in the Derby.
Yes.
And I don't
get a rider switch, right?
That may be the reason I asked that question myself of people on social media. Didn't really get a good answer of, why Mike Smith is on instead of Rosario. We'll get to Rosario in a second. But I'm wondering if the plan with Midnight Bourbon is to go, and that's going to force him to run faster than he naturally wants to. I don't think he's naturally fast enough, at least at his cruising speed, to compete early with Medina Spirit and Concert Tour. So if Midnight Bourbon finds himself up there, I think he gets burned out, and I don't think he hits the board. Other sharp handicappers I know totally disagree with me. You're not the only sharp handicapper using Midnight Bourbon. I have a plan, and my plan centers around a long shot. What I'm going to do is I am going to key my long shot. I'm going to play the horse to win, and I'm going to key it in the trifectas, first, second, third, with four horses, the two Bob Bafferts, Medina Spirit and Concert Tour, and the two Chad Browns, Crowded Trade and Risk Taking. And my long shot is the Japanese Invader, number 7, France Go de Ina. And here's how I ended up there. I stumbled accidentally across a replay of one of his two-year-old wins in Japan at a mile and 1/8. And because I'm a genius, and because his replays, you can't type in English and find his replays. So I took the Japanese language that was used for the title of those videos, and I searched by it, and I got another one of his races. So what I can tell you is this. I don't think many people in America have seen his replays.
That's true.
And I think if people did see, they'd be impressed. Now, we don't know what he was beating, and it's hard to compare fractional times from Japanese tracks to American. The timer starts as soon as the gate opens. There's a lot of complexities there. But what I can tell you is this. In one of his wins, he went to the front. They turned for home. He opened up on the field and won by 4 or 5. And then in start number 2, He sat a little bit behind the early leader in second, waited, kind of ran like a turf horse, honestly. He just exploded at the end. He came home as final eighth both times in respectable fractions. And the UAE Derby, Rosario was on, and the horse broke last, was at the back of the field, made a run around the turn for home, had to alter course in the stretch, was never going to win, but would have been much closer, finished sixth, beaten 10 lengths that day. Rosario is on him again here in the Preakness. Rosario, of course, is the regular rider for Concert Tour, and I'm sure there's a story as to why the jockey change happened, and I'm not going to speculate, but I don't think Ron Anderson, the jockey agent for John Velasquez and Joel Rosario, is stupid. Like, I know he's not stupid. I think Francisco de Ina is live. I think he's got a big chance to hit the board. I'm going to bet him to win. He'd need a lot of things to go his way in order for him to win. But I think people are going to dismiss him. He's about 19 to 1 in early wagering. No telling what he'll be by race time. Francisco de Ina is my pick in the Preakness, and I'm going to key him with the 2 Bafferts and the 2 Chad Browns. That's my take.
I think that I mean, he will now be part of my exacta play. I think you've convinced me. I didn't know. I didn't have all that information. I mean, the Rosario thing, the fact that Rosario went there was interesting, to say the least. And I was going to look into it, but it's good to know. I want to find out the background story. From a pace standpoint, I wonder what's going to happen. Concert Tour he's going to break from the outside. He's got to get out of trouble. He's got to make, he's going to at least be close. What do you think Baffert's telling, the 2 jockeys? Is he going to say, you run your own race, don't push, stay right off of Medina Spirit, see if we can go 1-2 all the way around the track? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Or is Midnight Bourbon going to gun it and just go to the lead regardless of how fast he has to go, even if it's too fast for him? I don't know. This may be, another in a long line of worthless pieces of information that come out of my mouth about Triple Crown races. But back when Justify won the Kentucky Derby, another Baffert entrant named, I believe it was Restoring Hope, owned by Gary West, the same person that owns Concert Tour, where that horse was sort of used that day as a shield to prevent a Pletcher horse, Indy something, from contesting the early lead with Justify. And I don't think Gary West, the owner of that horse, was happy with how his horse was used as sort of a blocker, a lead blocker, if you will, for Justify. Now, I don't know, and I'm completely rampantly, recklessly speculating, but I have no idea what went into deciding that this horse should run. Did the owner make the decision? Did Baffert protest? Did Baffert acquiesce? I don't know. It's speculation, but your question is, how will all that affect the early pace? And I think that's maybe one of the more interesting storylines of the Preakness. Who's going to go? And, I don't know what the answer is.
I don't necessarily know if it's Medina Spirit. I mean, he doesn't always go to the front. They may try to rate him, who knows?
Yeah, they may, or maybe Midnight Bourbon makes the decision and just goes under Irad Ortiz. So it's interesting. What I do think is that my long shot pick, Francisco de Ina, is going to be sitting just behind the early leaders. And we'll find out then if he's good enough. Odds are he's not good enough. Odds are he's not good enough to keep up with that kind of pace.
Love your realism.
Well, I mean, that's the truth. I'm betting on a horse that's probably going to be 20 to 1 or more. Yeah. I mean, he's going to need things to go. He's going to need to be very, very good, and he'll need things to go his way if Francisco de Ina is going to hit the board. But I'm just not that sold on any of the others. I do think the 2 Chads, I think they're both very reasonable. I have a strong opinion against Midnight Bourbon. The Baffert thing, I mean, how ironic would it be if he runs 1-2 here, given the week that he's had, a week that he put himself in this position, no doubt about that. But let's be honest, it hadn't been a good week, no matter whose fault it is. Not going to shock me if he runs 1-2. Not going to shock me if the Chads run 1-2. That'd be a little more of a surprise, obviously. But I think it could definitely happen. I think both horses are talented. Midnight Bourbon, if that horse wins, it's going to surprise me, but he clearly is one of the ones with ability. And that's kind of how I ended up on Francisco de Ina. I don't have a lot of conviction on any of the others.
If you don't have a conviction, you might as well go big.
That's right. And
valuable lesson. Don't try to hit, if you don't have a conviction, don't spread thin and try to hit the race. Take one angle and go hard, and you're either right or you're wrong.
So you're the one who's the master of ceremonies here. How long is this recording so far? The first LoneSpeed show he did was like 39 minutes. and the one me and Susie did was like 30 seconds shorter. So we have a habit of approaching that 40-minute land, which may be a little long.
I am not technically savvy enough to tell you how long it is right now. I can look around and see if I can figure it out, but I would guess we're probably around the, I would think we're around the 20-minute mark. I think we're just warming up, but you know, I feel like we've expressed our opinions. You're a Francisco de Ina. Who is you, if you had to pick a second, I mean, if you had to, like, what's your cold try? What's your cold try going to be?
Okay, so that's a separate question. I got to put my glasses on for this. If we're talking, you know, gun to my head, what is my cold trifecta? I would probably
and you can
say,
spread maybe 2 or 3 in the third hole, because no one ever really knows who's going to run third.
Yeah, I would probably put Concert Tour in first, honestly, and then I would probably put some combination of the 2 Chads and Medina Spirit in second and third.
Gotcha.
That's probably what I think will happen, and then maybe Francisco de Ina upsets the apple cart and, you know, shocks the world or whatever.
Gotcha.
That's where I am.
I'm a midnight bourbon crowded trade, and I think Baffert will run third in some capacity, but I don't really know or care who it is. So,
are you going to buy a LoneSpeed shirt when they become available online? That's the important question.
The moment they become available, I'm also planning on tattooing a LoneSpeed logo across my right ass cheek. Just so
well, you do that. The horse head is supposed to be black, but the t-shirt guy couldn't do that on the black shirt, obviously, and there were whole other issues. It cost a lot of extra money to get this put on a shirt and have 2 different colors. And when I say a lot of extra money, it's like this was probably $20. I think it would have cost like 30 or something. So
we have those for distribution at NHC though.
There are a lot of things in the work. A lot of things in the works. We're talking t-shirts, maybe hats.
Tattoo parlor. Will we have a relationship with a tattoo artist in town? It's Vegas. I mean, we can find a tattoo.
I'm guessing Vegas is not hurting for tattoo artists. That's my guess.
And we'll have that logo just on demand in case anyone at the NHC wants to get one.
I don't think we have to do take 2 here, Brent. I think we nailed it the first time. I think this is episode 3 of the LoneSpeed show in the can, as they say, as people in your industry say, because you're a famous actor.
Of course.
In the can.
In the can. So this is the martini shot, and this is it.
The LoneSpeed Show, signing off.